Thank you for your question. So, I'm going to explain to you what autism is from the German New Medicine perspective. So, it's two conflicts that create what we call a constellation. This information's from learninggnm.com. I think I have this constellation a little bit, but it's from a territorial anger or an identity conflict. I'm not going to get into all the details of that. And then there's also it's a territorial fear or a scare fright conflict, and this depends if you're a boy or girl, right-handed or left-handed, all this fun stuff. But when these conflicts usually happen in childhood, and a lot of people, they'll say like, "Oh, my child didn't go through any trauma," but like literally, like a kid not getting a cookie could be trauma. I know that sounds ridiculous. Going to the doctor and having to take medicine or having to get a shot, that that a lot of kids scream bloody murder when that happens. Um, Being birthed can be a traumatic experience if there's like the umbilical cord wrapped around the neck or something like that. Or if they're put in isolation in the nursery app, like being left in the crib overnight can be a traumatic event. Being left at the daycare could be like kids are completely helpless. They're completely helpless, and the littlest things can be a constellation, can be a conflict shock. So what my program does, I help people heal their gut issues. And when you go into the holistic community, you look at things like the GAPS diet, and they're like, "Oh, it's a leaky gut." Blah, 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 blah. It's actually the brain. It's not leaky gut at all. They might have heartburn because this is heartburn, and this is the lungs right here, or the larynx mucosa, I believe. So it might like look. So a lot of people with autism do have gut issues, but it's a conflict issue, and they're very subtle things. So one thing you would want to look for is when they become more autistic, then something just happened. The conflict just happened to them. And like you have to have like this brutal, unapologetic logic when you look for these things, and I wouldn't even call it brutal, but it's like, oh, he's not looking at me, and he's like, really, he's angry, he's angry. So what just happened? Did somebody try to take his toy? Oh man, I remember that one time I let him stay at so and so's house, and ever since then he started being more and more. Maybe the kids got into a fight because he took his toy. Mom, it literally can be something as ridiculous as that. So, but to create this constellation, usually the kid experienced it at a pretty intense, like it was like intense for the kid. So that's how you ease somebody out of this constellation. Now, they're gonna be more depressed or more manic. This is the manic side of the brain. This is the depressed side of the brain. So it's kind of like I have a computer science background, so I'm like very good at finding bugs and troubleshooting computer programs, which is kind of very similar to decoding the brain and how these conflicts work. It's like kind of like this game of like hot and cold, high and low, where we're trying, like it's really this troubleshooting process. And so what my program does, it's I wouldn't say it's designed for adults. I mean, it's more for adults, but totally a kid in middle school or high school could totally do it. But from a gut health perspective, but you can like the conflict for the gut is I can't digest this, or I want to get rid of this crap. So, but you would literally just change it to like territorial anger, or you just switch out the conflict and just do these 13 days of exercises to help. Like 50% of this is how to find the conflict and how to resolve the conflict. Another 25% is how a traumatized brain work, and then like 25% is the basics of German New Medicine and how the gut organs function. So that's essentially what it is. I don't think there's a G&M course that specifically focuses on autism. Usually you get a G&M course and it's just about like everything. Let me tell you about what happens when you get athlete's foot. Let me tell you what happens when you get cataracts. And then there'll be a little, which is great, but then there'll just be like a little section, out of an 8-hour course, there'll probably be like a 10-minute section on what autism is. And then in a lot of these GNM courses, there's just not much on how to resolve the conflict, and how to take out the tracks and stuff like that. But I highly recommend reading this page, and maybe something will resonate with you. But it's like really another level of consciousness and awareness on how your child reacts to certain things. So, like when do they have outbursts of anger? When do they really recede into their shell? Is it like when they get yelled at, or when you take their toy away, or when you tell them you can't do something, or they can't eat something? And the problem with these dumb diets, like the GAPS diet, is, try telling a kid that he can't have like cookies and candy. It's torture. And meanwhile, they're watching TV, and it creates this insane urge to want to eat just like all these fun foods, and then they can't because they're on some diet. Like, so it could create even more conflict. That's why I really don't like diets at all, because they're not addressing the root cause, and a lot of times they can antagonize the root cause, especially for a kid not allowed to eat foods, and then he goes to a birthday party and he's like, "Oh, look, I'll have the cake." I've been there, done that. So I hope that gives you a little bit more clarity on, I definitely think it would help, because I think I do a good job of explaining German New Medicine in a very simple way. But this would you'd have to definitely do it with him. And the parents, you have the most control over his life. So you have the biggest influence over his conflict, and giving him the emotional skills, the emotional intelligence to deal with them better. So, all right, thank you for your question. Hope that helps.